we're not going to give this cop his job back. But here, actually, if I had a bigger whiteboard, Stewart v. Laird would be 25 feet tall compared to this little petty case about a cop. But the key thing is, in the same month, they decide this case in February. They're waiting for the case about the real judges, the big judges, the circuit judges. And they write then, compared to this huge case, they write paragraph 1, paragraph 2, it's nothing decision. But people know, why do they write nothing? Why do they write 2 paragraphs about the big judges? Because they're embarrassed to write any more, because they know that it would be so hypocritical about this, about what they decided here, about rights to offices and remedies. But the point is that by punting on both the little DC cop in Marbury, and then a couple of weeks later having 2 paragraphs about the big judges that says, paragraph 1 said, Congress can get rid of judges when they want to. It's a huge deal, right? Basically saying, and that's a huge capitulation, that's a huge defeat for the Federalists.
With sitting judges on the court. That's the
These were judges. They created a whole circuit system with the Supreme Court, a whole new circuit system with specific judges all around the country. 3 judges here, 4 judges here, 3 judges here, 5 judges here, all around the country. And then with district courts, this was the Federalist project of basically saying, we just got crushed, and we just lost, actually by a little bit, we just lost a little election of 1800. To make sure that we can hold on to some power, we're going to create a massive national new federal system. And in one move, in 1802, Jefferson and the Jeffersonians come into Congress, and they lop off all that.
Is that still good case law now?
What's that?
Is that still good case law now?
No one's tried it. Stewart v. Laird is still the law. That if Congress tomorrow decided to abolish the first, let's just say they just decided to abolish the First Circuit and the Ninth Circuit because they just don't like them, and then recreated them, the lawyers who said that was valid would still cite Stewart v. Laird. Yeah. Why? Because the Constitution says the only court that the Constitution establishes in Article 3 is the Supreme Court. And the problem is if the court wanted to strip these judges out, they could. Do you know what else they could cite? They could cite a series of other cases at the same time where state judges got stripped. So I did this close study of Maryland. So here, big picture point about what happened next. After winning steps 1 and steps 2, you would expect all of these Federalist judges to say, okay, well, we just went to the wrong court. Let's just make sure now we all still have our rights, and we still have a right, and the Supreme Court said, Marshall said we had a remedy. Let's just make sure we all march down to our little district courts here. And in all the states, this same thing was happening in the states. Maryland, the Federalists had created this big, not even with midnight judges, in the 1790s, the Maryland Federalists created basically a clear judicial structure. They then lose. The Federalists lose in the same election that Jefferson wins. So Federalists are out, Jeffersonians come into Maryland, and they do the same thing. They wipe out all the lower courts in Maryland, wipe out all the Federalist judges, create the same structure. Basically say, never mind this, we're going to get you out. Oh, never mind, we're going to create a new court, but we're going to kick out the Federalist, and we're going to put in the Jeffersonian. These Federalists went to the right court in Maryland. Said, we have a right, check. We have a remedy, check. We went to the right court, give us our job back. In a year, and check this out. This is the court that made this decision was Samuel Chase's cousin. The 2 of them were writing, this is stuff that I found. They were writing back and forth to each other. Samuel Chase says, look, check out this Maryland case in 1802. Look at this brief. They make all the arguments for why Federalists should get their jobs back. And with the 2-to-1, the Federalists have 2 judges here. In this Maryland case, there are 2 arch Federalists, and there's 1 Jeffersonian. How do you think and about Federalist judges getting their jobs back, how do you think the court ruled? 2 arch Federalists, Samuel Chase, the big arch Federalist on the Supreme Court, his cousin who has the same view, they're writing back and forth. How do you think they rule about Federalist judges in the year before Marbury? Just guess. Think 2-to-1, just like today, 5-4, all the Republican judges vote one way. Yeah. They ruled 3-0 against the Federalists. And they ruled 3. Why? Because they were all scared. Every Federalist in the country, especially Samuel Chase and Chief Justice Marshall, were all scared that not only could the Jeffersonians do this, wipe out all the circuit courts, they could also start doing this. Not assassinating, but picking off one. I mean, maybe, I don't know, we'll see what happens, like a duel, right? Some sort of play about that. Wasn't there a duel around this time, right? So you could start impeaching one justice after the other, right? Which actually happened to Samuel Chase even after Samuel Chase's cousin betrays him by voting as the Federalists. He then votes with Marshall on Marbury, but also on this total surrender, and then Samuel Chase gets pissed off and goes, excuse my language, goes off into
They've heard worse.
Yeah, I'm sure they have. I've heard worse in my house, and I've said worse in my house. He starts going off around the country, around Maryland, where he holds circuit, and starts whining and shouting and screaming about the awful Jeffersonians when he's hearing cases. People are doing review of which jurors to take. Samuel Chase keeps screaming about how awful Jeffersonians are. Guess what they do to him? They impeach him in 1804. And basically what happens between 1802, 1803, 1804, the Jeffersonians on the state level and on the federal level start impeaching judges. And the only reason why they don't is because Marbury comes out the way it does, with a surrender to the Jeffersonians, a threat about judicial review that's buried in it, but they surrender everything else, and the Jeffersonians let them keep their jobs.
So I think what this is amazingly helpful for is setting up how incredible it is that John Marshall and his court managed to turn themselves into one of the most powerful branches of government, given where they were when he started off on the court. So
yes, and I know you have to go in 30 seconds.
I think we're actually a little over that time. So this has been. So I want to just thank you so much for coming and reminding us. Thank you so much for everything, and we'd be delighted if you'd be willing to come back and talk more with us about this.
The homework I want you to figure out is, when is the next, after this case, when is the next time that people agreed was the next big moment for judicial review? Let me give you a hint, it doesn't happen for decades.
Against the federal government.
It's Dred Scott. It's Dred Scott. So now what you look up what, you know what Dred Scott was?
Yes.
That's it. This bomb that Marshall saves is then used for slavery 50 years later.
Thank you so much.
You're so right.
Thank you so much. Great questions.
Oh, yes,
Hey, 1 second.
Sure.
We gave like the background about the reading of the acceptance clause.
Oh yeah, thank you.
In the Constitution.
Thank you.
Jesse argued, as you argued, that there's a period after the original jurisdiction and then the appellate jurisdiction is unaccepted.
Well, the argument was about the phrase.
Let him sit on his bench. So that's my
the next clause.
That's actually my
And
question
I argued that
Shugerman, because that was
exception was broad enough that it could
But it wasn't about the
It
was about just step out of the way, Jefferson, and let him go sit.
The problem is
That was
that I think the problem is how much clarity there is in section 2. So if
Well, it says nothing about it.
where original jurisdiction is and accept the regulations and exceptions
is that it's not really
basically saying, we're going to create jurisdictions of appellate or original jurisdiction. That doesn't mean that all original jurisdiction, everything's automatically or that
Exactly.
jurisdictions live in.
And I didn't leave there.
I think what they're saying is that this Congress can then, when it creates other aspects of urban jurisdiction, they can continue. I actually so as a scholar, I'm one of the people that argues that regulations exceptions are I'm sympathetic. So I'll give you an example. I'm sympathetic to it when it comes to questions that are
Honestly,
so I'll tell you.
Did you see my TikTok?
And then let's process the regulations and within a college jurisdiction.
nobody raised their hand on that. Exactly.